What's up, you guys? My name is Levi with Alliteration Gaming, and today I have another deck profile for you guys. Today, again, this is going to be once again hot off the heels of my performances throughout the 3 provisionals I played at across Origins. This time I'm going to be taking a look at the one I topped day 1 and day 3 on, I believe, namely provisional number 1, and there should be provisional number 5 because I played in the first ones both days. Anyway, I topped both of those with this exact list. We are once again returning to Ochaco 1 dot, the babe herself. This time though, we're going to be getting a little different with it. We are going to be on a life symbol this time. So Ochaco is a character that I hadn't paid attention a ton to. Even though being one of my favorite characters, I hadn't looked at her a lot as far as like set 2 stuff goes, because I was just so interested in making and playing other characters and play styles. But eventually I was like, okay, I need to get a little sweaty for these provisionals and try and get me some top 8 Selkies, give me a little bit more street cred now that I haven't been playing as much as I've been casting lately. So I was like, I know Ochaco 1 is still crazy. I know life is just the craziest symbol in the world. So I figured I'd see what I could put together as far as a life deck for her went. This is kind of what I resulted in. It's a little different than a lot of the other main life decks running around, whether they're like Ochacos, Togas, or Frappies. They all kind of play a very similar main deck. My main deck's a little different because I still have the biggest affinity for Meteor Shower. It's like my favorite card, and I'm just trying to play it till the end of the earth. But anyway, so let's just get right into it and kind of, a lot of these cards you've seen before, but there's also going to be a lot of new cards in there as well, so let's get into it. Ochaco herself is a 6-hander with 27 health with 2 pretty crazy abilities. She says after your charge or high attack resolves, you can just snap it straight into your momentum. So whether or not they blocked it, whether or not they took it, no matter what, just shove it straight in there. And then you can commit herself. She can commit herself if you have 1 or more momentum to give an attack 3 speed, and then you can put 1 of your momentum in your hand. So she's a really powerful character card. She's essentially a 7-hander. She loops attacks. Any 1 attack you draw can actually be 2, and she snaps things into the momentum to quickly turn on stuff like Gravity Lift and Meteor Shower. She's really crazy. She has one of the best symbol spreads. Air and Life are still 2 of the top dogs. Life probably being like the best symbol in the game right now. So makes sense that we are still playing her, but now pivoting towards the life symbol. So let's put Ochaco right up here and then start getting into the attack. So the first thing we have is 4 copies of 0 Grav Lift. This is our 3 high for 6 throw that says when it's in the momentum, it can remove itself. After this attack resolves, add your momentum, so you get to put another one in. If you open this up with Ochaco, you can snap it in, then use this effect on your next one, and you can get so many attacks out in such like a ridiculously small number of foundations. It's pretty crazy. So Gravelous is of course just one of still just one of our super duper staple cards. You can just never go wrong with it. It's certainly the best throw in the game right now, and probably will be for a very long time, although Clasp and Facepalm collectively are pretty close. Next we have one of the strongest attacks in the whole freaking game right here. We got Frog Lashing. This is a 5 diff attack. It starts as a 4 high for 6, but it gets a damage for every ready face down foundation, and you get to ready 2 face down, so it's really like a 3 diff, or even better if you check it well and then go from there. It's also a 1 mid block with Breaker 1. This card's crazy. The fact that this card has no damage cap on it is nuts. One of these is actually 2 in Ochaco. If you draw 2 of these, you basically have like 3 diff attacks for like easily 10 plus damage. Your foundation base is designed to flip your stuff like crazy, since you don't do it naturally or innately, should I say, like Frappy does. But either way, this card's just crazy. So next we got 4 copies of Meteor Shower. This is Ochaco's original ultra rare. One of my favorite attack in the game. It's a really cool card that says when it's in your momentum, you can go ahead and pick it up because it goes to your momentum face up. By discarding the card, you can grab it, and then when you're playing it itself, you can pitch a momentum to turn a Meteor Shower into your discard pile into that momentum. So basically, it's just going to be constantly cycling itself out. The second you get kind of like all 4 of these in rotation, it's very much just like a guaranteed 6-7 attack turn, depending on what else you draw. It's a really great card, and I feel like even changing symbols, Ochaco still plays this card like a beast, naturally, as it is her ultra rare, and it's still kind of like the defining part of my attack game plan. I pretty much just want to find all my Meteor Showers and then just set up a really crazy attack turn. Next, we've got 3 copies of Back Alley Haymaker, one of the most powerful attacks in set 2, and it happens to be a charge attack. So this says this card's crazy, man. It's got charge, it's got punch, it's got EX2, it's got stun 2, and then it says you can draw a card or build a 0 difficulty foundation from your discard pile. You do not build it committed. This card's insane. Tight-lipped and Release are two of like our strongest foundations in this deck, and this just builds them en masse. So like it sets up your Frog Lashings really hard. It builds it ready, so it's like actually a 4-diff in disguise. Or if you've just got no zeros to grab, it just draws you a card. You can eat it with Ochaco because it is a charge. You can loop them around and just draw a bunch of cards. It's a really crazy attack. Next, we've got 3 copies of Tongue Smack. Yes, the infamous Tongue Smack returns, makes its way into the life symbol deck as well. This is a 4 for 4 that says if your character's committed, it gets +2 damage, and then if something's left your card pool this turn, you can draw a card. So it's just like a 6 damage move that replaces itself. It's really, really nice. Again, my favorite play still in this deck is just like opening up with anything, telling them block it or not, I don't care, eating it, then sending this in, drawing the card so it instantly replaces itself. Then you just use your Ochaco commit on it. It's a 7 for 6. If they bother blocking that, they're probably going to die to like whatever else you have coming. And if they don't, it's just a free 6 damage, and then you just proceed with building from there and chillaxing. I like it. It's a really, really great flow card and still one of my favorites. Rounding out the attacks, we got 2 copies of Naval Laser Beam. This is the only attack in the deck that Ochaco cannot respond to snap in, but it's got a pretty powerful payoff for being that. It's got a first enhance where you can discard a momentum to unflip 2. Then you can flip 1 for 2 speed and flip 1 for 2 damage. Most importantly though, it is a 2 mid block with breaker 2. That's like the primary reason that it's in this deck. I like just being able to have a breaker 2 option, and then if it actually deals damage, you get to pick it up with Ochaco whenever you want, with her commit. And you can also just like given the 3 speed on this, you can easily make it like an 8. By flipping 1, you can make like an 8 mid for 6 or an 8 mid for 8, and that's usually just almost going to get, you know, taken every day of the week, or they just probably die to whatever else you've got going on. So that's the attack lineup. There are definitely a lot of synergies within like the character and the attacks themselves, but for the most part, these are all just very, very powerful standalone attacks. The life symbol's got a ton of just super cracked attacks that just do a lot of things on their own and really, really progress your game state and or just like destroy your opponent's life total. So let's move on to the foundations. Of course, the first big one that we have to talk about is 4 copies of Excited for Blood. Probably the strongest foundation in the game right now. It is a 3-diff foundation that says response when your rival loses health, you can flip it to gain 4 health, and then also when your rival loses health, you can lose 2 health to draw a card. So this card is really, really crazy. You know, you can just sit there with it on the board and draw a card every time you hit them. If you have the throw, then nobody gets to play around it by attempting to block. And then whenever you want, you can also just flip it and heal 4. And it's pretty crazy. It's got a great off-zone block as well. Card just kind of does like everything for very, very minimal cost. It's a great one. I take 1 copy of Rescue Completed. You could play more, but I don't play the new training method type of build, so I don't really want to have like a million 3-diffs in the deck, but this is just like a nice one of, you know, if you see it, you see it. You can destroy it to ready 2 face-down foundations, and then you can commit a foundation to give an attack +1 or -2 speed. So it's a great card when you see it. Again, I just don't want to play like a million 3-diffs. However, the low block is really, really nice on it too, because we have very few low blocks in this deck as the life symbol. There's not a huge bevy of ones you want to run as opposed to ones you don't want to run. Next, this is kind of where my flavor starts coming into the deck here. I got 4 copies of Wealthy Aspirations. This is a unique foundation that says when something goes into your momentum, you can flip it and add the top card deck into your momentum for practically free. And then you can also remove it to look at your momentum and turn 1 face up. We don't really do it in this deck because we don't have like jolts and surges and stuff like that. We mostly just use it for free momentum because our free momentum in this deck is eventually going to convert into a meteor shower, and it just gets you that momentum that you need to set those up extra fast. Most of the times in this deck, since we don't have as much like free momentum generation, I find myself not using Ochaco's commit if I can early on, so I can actually try and generate some momentum, string out my meteor showers, and then actually just use it on moves that like the speed really matters. It is nice that you can do the +3 speed without picking up momentum if you are trying to save them up for that. You can just go for the 3 speed out of it, and it's very nice. We got 3 copies of Passing the Torch. This says to commit and draw a card, or if you've got no cards, you can draw 2 cards instead. Just a really, really great piece. Only 3 because like it's kind of like diminishing returns after a while. However, when you enter those really, really long, there's long, grindy type game states, you definitely want to see it. The block zone is also not the greatest, not the greatest, so otherwise we also don't play 4. Next we got 3 copies of Face Shield and 3 copies of Wall Cling. I'm talking about these kind of at the same time because they're kind of the same card with like slightly different applications. Wall Cling says you can flip it, and if this attack is blocked, it deals no damage. So it gets around if you can't perfect block something, you can half block it and take none, or you can stop a throw from dealing any damage, which is really nice. And then in a similar vein, Faith Shield says, response after you block with this card, the attack will deal no damage, and then you remove itself to to flip the attack after it resolves. You can also pop it on board to give a charge or stun -2 damage, but you almost will never do that. But sometimes, it certainly does come up sometimes. But these are just basically like our safety cards in the deck. There are Throw Hate that also that just also stops our combos and our opponents annoying and stuff like that. But I used to prioritize Wall Cling more over Faith Shield, but Faith Shield does proc Amphibious in this deck, which I will explain later as we get to it. So next we have, for the spams, 4 copies of High Value Target. This is a really nice card that says when you're blocking, when you're passing a check for a block, you can commit it as 2 foundations, and when something else would be destroyed, you can destroy this instead. So it's pretty nice. Protects your slightly more high value cards, stuff like your Wall Clings and your Except for Bloods, your Passing the Torches, yada yada yada. And then also it's just 2 foundations when you're blocking, which I think is really strong. That's also just a low block. It's not a great one, but with stuff like Release in this deck, your block modifiers being bad usually isn't a huge detriment. Next, we've got 4 copies of Amphibious. This says once per turn, you can go ahead and ready it if something has left your card pool. Obviously, at Ochaco, that's always going to be happening. Faith Shield does remove itself, which means it left the card pool when you block with it, so you can also ready your Amphibiouses defensively when you make that play, which is extremely powerful. This basically being 4 foundations like it is in Froppy all the time, in Ochaco as well, is just crazy strong. Then we've got 4 copies of Observant Student. This card just says you can flip it to take a peek at the top card of your deck. It's also got a sweet deadlock that says if something's left our card pool, we can commit it and grab any ranged attack, which is basically most of our really sweet stuff aside from our grab lifts and our back alley haymakers. But we can grab all kinds of really crazy cards with this. Especially our Frog Lashings. You're almost always going to go with Frog Lashing if given the chance. It's also a nice 1 low block, and really the flip is more better. It's more valuable as a flip cost, just like as a flip benefit for the cost, rather than actually getting the peek at the top part of your deck, because it sets up our Frog Lashings really nicely. Speaking of setting up our Frog Lashings really nicely, we've got 4 copies of Tight Lipped. This says you can flip a foundation to give your attack +1 damage. It can flip itself for this, or it can flip any other foundation. Either way, it's super strong. You want to get on as many of these on board as possible to make your Frog Lashings like 15 damage, like super early on. It's very powerful. It's also got a +1 mid block. You know, just nothing to be mad about. And then for the last 0, we have 4 copies of Release. This says you can destroy a foundation to give your check to block this attack, only the attack we're currently on. It will not pass over if you choose not to block. To give your check to block the attack +2. It's really strong. It's very easy to get 2 of these on board and just start popping away, having +4s to all your checks, and making some really crazy survival plays, even if it comes at the cost of your own stage. And your back alley haymakers, again, are going to do wonders at finding these. Then for blue and green cards, we got 2 copies of Plus Ultra. Plus Ultra, you know, it's a +5 mid, but when you block with it, you make their speed 0. And you can first enhance pitch and momentum to double speed or damage. Just a very powerful card. Card saved my bacon many times throughout the day, so I still really like it in there as just the emergency answer to deal with a lot of really big moves. And then just 1 copy of Trace Sheet Cake. This is a unique asset with horrible block mod, but you can first enhance commit it to unflip a committed foundation, which is really nice. And it's also got a deadlock form that picks up our ranged attacks. So it's a nice card. When you see it, you see it. My favorite thing to do is just combo it with Wealthy Aspirations all day and generate like so much free momentum as you go through your turns. But it's also really nice for things like unflipping your Wall Clings is crazy. Obviously, unflipping your Except for Bloods is crazy. Any unflip is really good just as a commit cost, but there are some super powerful targets in this deck and this deck alone. So that is the main deck. I like this main deck. There are a couple things that after actually playing the 2 provisionals, I'd probably change about it. If anything, I would kind of like to make the deck a little bit smaller. Naval Laser, as nice as the breaker was, I think would probably get cut from the deck for either another attack, probably something like a Tongue Whip, or I would just cut it and then a couple foundations and just make it a slightly smaller deck. Because when I play Meteor Shower decks, I like them to be like 55, 56 cards max so that I can try and see as many Meteor Showers as possible. So I think the Naval Laser would probably get swapped out for a more useful attack, and then there'd be some in the sideboard, and then maybe a couple foundations could be cut if I wanted to just cut them entirely and go down to a smaller deck. The foundation lineup, though, I really liked a lot. If anything was expendable, it'd maybe be like 1 Wealthy Aspirations, maybe a Pass in the Torch, something like that. Maybe an Observant Student, you know, just like some very minimal trimming the fat. But otherwise, I did really like this list. I do have a sideboard, which I'm going to talk about right now. Because it very much leads into a lot of the changes I would make. The first thing in my sideboard was 2 copies of Naval Laser. I thought I would side in these against stuff that Breaker was really strong against, but when it came time to do it every game, I was like, all of these other attacks are just way too valuable to get rid of. So I was like, I don't think I'd ever want more than 2 Naval Lasers in the deck, so I think I'd probably just cut these from the main and then keep the 2 in the side so I could have 2 if need be. But even when Breaker was really good in a matchup, I didn't really ever want to have more than 2. So those would remain in the sideboard, but probably get cut from the main deck. The other attack I cited was 3 copies of Amphibious Ambush. This is a cool attack that says combo with a ranged. Your opponent puts a face-up foundation into their card pool, and then they may build one, and then you can stuff another ranged attack in your card pool into your momentum. Between like an ambush and a meteor shower and or a grab lift, it can just make like 6 or 7 attacks out of practically nothing. It's a really powerful attack, and I like it, especially in a more meteor shower focused build. However, it's really susceptible to a lot of the things that like remove keywords, things that stuff card pool to mess up combos, Faith Shield flipping your attacks, stuff like that. There's a lot of things that can mess with it, so I prefer to keep it in the side and then side it in once I know I'm in a matchup where that symbol doesn't have things that can mess with it. So usually I would side out like the 2 Naval Lasers and then either like a Tongue Smack or something like that to bring these in. Like I said, as far as like what I actually like they bring to the deck, I wish they were in the main. But I think it's just a little too vulnerable in the meta we're currently in. I sided in 1 more Plus Ultra. This came in a lot of games, and once again, Plus Ultra was saving my bacon all day. I like the 2 main, 1 side for Plus Ultra. That's kind of what I've arrived at. 4 at any point in time feels a little too cloggy, but this feels perfect. Then I just sided in the 4th Wall Cling and the 4th Faith Shield, just for matchups that were heavily reliant on either their combos or their throws to push damage. And then last thing I sided was 2 Someone with Styles. This is a cool attack that says you can destroy one of your foundations to ready it while it's committed. And if it gets committed due to a stun ability, you can destroy it to make the attack 0 speed. So it's a nice stun hate. I kind of just brought it in on things that have nice stun. I know it's a very popular card in the main deck of a lot of life builds, but it just doesn't really fit in mine anywhere. But it's certainly a nice sideboard piece for sure. So that's my sideboard, and then the last thing I want to talk about is just some cards that I don't play, and then why I don't play them. So as you might have noticed, this deck is very completely absent of any copies of Ready, Set, Go. Ready, Set, Go is a action that says when your rival plays their 4th foundation, you can play this to build 2 from your hand. So it also has a form where you can basically just draw a card by getting rid of it. And so it's never really dead, and if you're going second and they build 4, you can get a really cheeky build 2 out of this. I didn't play it because I think it's not necessarily as good in Ochaco as a 6-hander as opposed to the 7-handers, because it's a little more easier for them to see it and then also see the foundations to get advantage of it. Those builds also play stuff like the new training methods and then the higher like 3 diff counts and stuff like that to really get value out of it. I felt like my build and my character just wasn't as catered towards it. As far as attacks go, Tongue Whip is a really crazy card that, like, realistically speaking, you should probably be playing over Tongue Smack, but I like Tongue Smack a lot. But Tongue Whip is a really crazy card. Like I said, if you wanted to cut the Naval Lasers for a different attack, like cut the Naval Lasers and not shrink the deck down, Tongue Whip is probably your next one that comes in for sure. It's just a really strong card. Home Run Comet is also a really strong card. I didn't really include it because I felt like my deck was a little less reliant on bombs because it's more of a meteor deck, it's more of a string deck, and I'm kind of passively using my momentum to get those meteors out. And Frog Lashing is really the move that just becomes like 10 damage for perfectly free, as opposed to how hard you have to work for something like Home Run. Foundation-wise, I like First Villain Encounter a lot. It was in the deck initially, but it just kind of came out over time as the deck got smaller and more important things came in. But it is nice, and I do really love the Deadlock on it. However, I think we have okay Deadlocks in this deck regardless. Training Partner is another card that I like a lot. It constantly fights between Plus Ultra for like the main deck spot for me. For today, I wasn't really sure what my opponents would be doing, as it was a very new unestablished meta. So I went for something like Plus Ultra that was a little less interactable of a stat reset over something like this. And then Self-Sacrifice and Bonds of Friendship are just kind of like generically nice cards. Good 6-check, good block zones, keeps you out of deadlock, stuff like that. My deck is a lot smaller because, again, Meteor Shower deck. But I think if you were playing a bigger deck, these are just really nice, kind of nice like cards to fatten the deck up, right? Like just fill in spots that aren't super necessary for stuff. And then I didn't prepare one on me, but Someone with Style is a really nice card. Again, in those bigger decks that play the higher, non-spam counts and things, and the Ready Set Goes and all, I do really like it. I think it's awesome in those decks. This is a more kind of like streamlined, hyper aggressive, once again, Turbo Meteor Shower type deck like I built in set 1. As the game goes, every time there is a very good Ochaco deck and or symbol, I'm gonna find a way to just Turbo Meteor Shower the heck out of it, because it's what I like to do. I'm not saying this deck is strictly worse than those variants. I think it's really good. I was able to top 2 provisionals with it. Ochaco in general, Ochaco and the life symbol are so strong right now that I think you can build a lot of different variations of the character and or symbol, and they're gonna be good no matter what, just because your card quality is so absolutely strong. So guys, that is my Ochaco 1 on life. This is card for card the list that I played in both provisionals. I kind of went over the couple of changes I would make. I'm not sure if I'll make those changes. I'm not sure if I'll continue to play Ochaco under the life symbol. I think it's the strongest way to play her right now for sure. So if you're very competitively minded, that is where you want to be. I don't really have as much fun with it personally as I do with Ochaco's other symbols. I like Air and Chaos a lot more. I like a lot of the cards that you get in those. But this is a very strong deck, and if you're looking to compete with Ochaco, I think this is definitely one of the variants that you should be looking for. That's it. That's all I have for you guys on this one today. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and do all of that nonsense. I've got a ton more post-Vegas and post-Origins content on the way. It's going to be a very exciting few weeks for the channel as we go through all of that coverage of these new decks I've been playing and the meta that we're evolving into. And y'all really just do not want to miss out on it. It's going to be so much fun. But that's it for this video, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. This has been Levi, and I'm going to see you guys on the next one. Peace out.